Chapter 16. The Plane Ride Home. The morning sun rose over Spanish Wells, a blazing orb painting the sky with hues of orange and gold. It was a stark contrast to the state of the three friends stumbling their way to the boat dock so that they could catch a ferry towards the airport and eventually their charter plane home. Johnny, with his complexion reflecting a unique blend of seasickness and hangover, clung to the railing of the ferry as if it were his last hope of salvation. Austin, the epitome of poise despite the chaos, then flashed Mountain a 5-mile smile. Mountain had just won the U.S. Open, his first ever PGA victory, after narrowly coming in second to Austin Graff in another tournament only a few weeks before. "Looks as if someone had a wee bit too much fun last night," Austin quipped, nodding towards Johnny, who was now leaning precariously over the side of the boat. Mountain chuckled weakly, feeling every bit as rough as Johnny looked. "You could say that again. I think I might swear off rum for good after this." Johnny lifted his head, a ghostly pallor painting his face. "I think I might swear off everything but weed for good after this," he groaned, sinking back down with a defeated sigh. Then looking Mountain dead in the eye and saying not. As the boat rocked gently on the waves, Austin leaned in closer to Mountain, his voice barely above a mere whisper. "Hey man, I hate to break it to you, but I think that we might need the pilot that you rented to make a pit stop on the way back. I have a physical therapy appointment in Soulard that I really should not miss. Can we please fly into Lambert Airport in St. Louis? And you and Johnny can then continue on to Beanfield from there, if that is okay." Austin had always been the one to foot the bill for their charter plane drinking binges in the past, but the silver lining for Austin winning only second place at the latest U.S. Open was that it came with the perk of Mountain, as the winner, picking up all the costs of this trip. Mountain raised an eyebrow, his headache intensifying at the mere thought that he did not fully earn his last win over a possibly injured Austin Graff. "What's the deal, Austin? Did you recently injure something other than your pride?" Austin then shook his head, a glint in his eyes. "Not really. My shoulder has just been stiff is all." Mountain considered the proposition for a moment, and then agreed to Austin's plan to land in St. Louis. With a laugh, Austin clapped Mountain on the back and said, "Trust me, my friend, next time the results will be much different." "I hope that isn't the shoulder you need for masturbation," Mountain then quipped back. "I must have been masturbating incorrectly all these years, since the only thing that I have been using my shoulder for, thus far in the masturbatory process, Mountain, my friend, is a freaking target." Austin retorted with a laugh that could make even a hyena jealous. Mountain loved Austin's laugh because it was the only loud thing that he ever did, with the possible exception of his snoring. As they then boarded the plane, Johnny's complexion had taken on an interesting shade of green, and it was not very long until the air in the cabin of their charter became thick with the smell of garbage ass and boozy breath. But despite the discomfort, there was an undeniable sense of competition between Austin and Mountain. However, it was not as strong as the bond that they had now forged in the crucible of late-night revelry and shared misadventures. And so, as they soared through the sky towards home, with Johnny nursing his hangover in the back of the plane and Austin lost in his Red Bull-fueled thoughts, Mountain could not help but feel like he may have just beaten his greatest rival, mentor, and friend at the U.S. Open, while he was actually at less than his best. Worse yet was that Austin was way too classy to even bring it up in the wake of Mountain's victory during their binge on Spanish Wells. Mountain knew that he would never be as classy as his mentor, but he did still think that he could possibly be the better golfer of the two. And then their thoughts were suddenly interrupted as the charter plane began to rattle, shimmy, and groan, its metal frame protesting against the strain of flight as though it were a wounded beast desperately clinging to life. Each jolt sent shivers down Johnny's spine, his stomach churning with a nauseating mix of fear and dread. "I'm gonna hurl rum and conch meat," he muttered, with his voice trembling as he clutched the armrests with white-knuckled intensity. Austin's brow then furrowed in concern, his usually composed demeanor betraying a hint of anxiety. "Hang in there, Johnny," he said, his words only a feeble attempt to offer reassurance in the face of impending disaster. "We are going to make it through this." But Mountain remained silent, his mind a whirlwind of panicked thoughts and grim predictions. As the small plane then lurched and shuddered, he could not shake the sinking feeling that they were now hurtling towards their doom with every passing second. Suddenly, with a deafening silence, the engines fell silent, leaving nothing but the eerie sound of rushing wind and the creaking of metal as the plane then plummeted towards the hard ground below. Johnny let out a strangled cry, his eyes wide with terror as he braced himself for impact. Finally, their plane crash landed in Murfreesboro, Illinois, and the trio's relief was like a floodgate opening amidst the chaos of the emergency landing. Amidst the tumult, Austin headed off to rent a car and drive back to Soulard in the fanciest Benz available for rental in all of Murfreesboro, Illinois that day. "Austin is like a force of nature," Johnny remarked to Mountain, with a touch of awe in his voice. "Nothing can stand in his way when he sets his mind to something." As Johnny and Mountain embarked on their own journey back to Beanfield in a rented Corvette, the tension in the air was palpable, thick as the smoke from a raging bonfire. Johnny insisted on driving, thus allowing Mountain's eyes to fixate on the spreadsheets in his lap, his mind racing with calculations and what-ifs. What if Austin really was injured at the U.S. Open? He pondered aloud, his voice echoing with uncertainty. Could that have been at the underpinnings of my victory? Johnny then gave his friend a good long look, with the weight of their shared doubt hanging heavy between them like a shroud. "It is a possibility," he conceded, his words laced with a hint of skepticism. "But do not let it undermine your win, Mountain. You earned that victory fair and square. Hell, dude, you didn't even cheat in that tournament, did you? I mean, not really." But Mountain could not shake the gnawing sense of unease that now gripped him like a vice, the shadow of doubt now looming large in his mind. As they sped down Highway 127 North, the neon glow of roadside signs cast eerie shadows across their rented car. Mountain could not help but wonder if he truly was a better golfer than Austin Graff. He damn sure was not a better man, he mused to himself. Mountain then turned to Johnny and asked a question that he probably should not have. "Hey, what if I'm Austin's Johnny?" Johnny laughed for about 10 full seconds and then sparked a joint. Neither one of them spoke again for the rest of the 4.5-hour ride home to Beanfield.